Israel and the Palestinians. In 1995, Congress adopted the Jerusalem Embassy Act, urging the federal government to relocate the American embassy to Jerusalem and to recognize that that city, and so importantly, is Israel's capital. This act passed Congress by an overwhelming bipartisan majority and was reaffirmed by a unanimous vote of the Senate only 6 months ago. Yet for over 20 years, every previous American president has exercised the law's waiver, refusing to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem or to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital city. Presidents issued these waivers under the belief that delaying the recognition of Jerusalem would advance the cause of peace. Some say they lacked courage, but they made their best judgment based on facts as they understood them at the time. Nevertheless, the record is in. After more than 2 decades of waivers, we are no closer to a lasting peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. It would be folly to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result. Therefore, I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Yes.
While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to do
Undivided capital of
Today,
Israel.
I am delivering. I've judged this course of action to be in the best interests of the United States of America and the pursuit of peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is a long overdue step to advance the peace process and to work towards a lasting agreement. Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital. Acknowledging this is a fact is a necessary condition for achieving peace. It was 70 years ago that the United States under President Truman recognized the state of Israel. Ever since then, Israel has made its capital in the city of Jerusalem, the capital the Jewish people established in ancient times. Today, Jerusalem is the seat of the modern Israeli government. It is the home of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, as well as the Israeli Supreme Court. It is the location of the official residence of the Prime Minister and the President. It is the headquarters of many government ministries. For decades, visiting American presidents, secretaries of state, and military leaders have met their Israeli counterparts in Jerusalem, as I did on my trip to Israel earlier this year. Jerusalem is not just the heart of 3 great religions, but it is now also the heart of one of the most successful democracies in the world. Over the past 7 decades, the Israeli people have built a country where Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and people of all faiths are free to live and worship according to their conscience and according to their beliefs. Jerusalem is today and must remain a place where Jews pray at the Western Wall, where Christians walk the stations of the cross, and where Muslims worship at Al-Aqsa Mosque. However, through all of these years, presidents representing the United States have declined to officially recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. In fact, we have declined to acknowledge any Israeli capital at all. But today we finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do. It's something that has to be done. That is why, consistent with the Jerusalem Embassy Act, I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This will immediately begin the process of hiring architects, engineers, and planners so that a new embassy, when completed, will be a magnificent tribute to peace. In making these announcements, I also want to make one point very clear. This decision is not intended in any way to reflect a departure from our strong commitment to facilitate a lasting.
Well, apparently Jerusalem Post has reset itself, and so I think I'm going to stop here. Stories that I have heard is that President Donald Trump would still sign a waiver, but there are some that say that he can sign a waiver at any time. Some are saying that once the deadline is passed, that it's too late. I was of the opinion that he can do it any time he wanted to. But the fact that he is ordering them to begin to move the embassy in Jerusalem says something. Now, the only thing that bothers me about that last point is that one of the ministers of Israel correctly pointed out that all they had, it wouldn't take but 2 seconds to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. All they would have to do, there is a consulate over there in Jerusalem that is the American consulate, and all they would have to do is change the sign on the door from U.S. consulate to U.S. embassy. And so I don't know if this is a stalling tactic. I've heard stories that claim that Donald Trump is doing this to satisfy his donors like Adelson. I don't really think that that is the case myself. I cannot read people's minds. But what I want to tell you is, as I have been saying nearly all week long, if Donald Trump, if President of the United States Donald Trump does this, then the nations of this world are going to spew out what is in their hearts: hate and evil. Now, it is not Israel's fault that they're doing this. It is not President Donald Trump's fault that the nations are spewing out hate and evil. The hate and evil is within their own hearts. They are full of it. And those nations, including the man at the Vatican, are going to have to be dealt with. And they will be dealt with. Did he do the right thing today? About 75%, I would say yes. 75% of it was the right thing. It's a bit disingenuous to talk about architects when all you have to do is change a sign in a building that the United States government already occupies in Jerusalem. That's all you have to do. So there's some untruth right there that needs to be rectified. However, it does say in Isaiah 60 that in the time of Zion's rising, that the ships of Tarshish, aka the Atlantic, will take the lead in the Israel-Jerusalem effort. It is written. And so we may be seeing the beginning signs of this, and that particular chapter is written about in the 5th plague, probably after all the trumpets have been blown and the plagues, right in the middle of the plagues. So I would, as I said before, recommend that each and every one of you who are listening now, get your food supply ready. Get your water supply ready. You might have a hard time getting food and water for 3.5 years. I'm not saying that you will, I'm saying you might. And you do not want to be caught unprepared. You know that this is starting a change, a sea change. This begins the societal reset that I've been talking about for quite a while. And just a few days from now comes the 24th day of the month of Kislev that I have been talking about over and over and over again, written about in Haggai 2, verses 18 through 22. So, do I think that this particular 24 of the day of the 9th month, do I think it's this year that Haggai 2 verses 18 through 22 is talking about? I think so. I don't know so. We must be watchful, be careful, and be watchful. And anybody new who's watching this channel? Yes, I'm wearing strange clothing for a reason. And I'm wearing this yellow star for a reason, in honor of the victims of the Holocaust who were murdered because they were Jews, victims of all of the Crusades who were murdered because they were Jews, and also those who were murdered for the Yeshua Messiah's sake. So a page has turned here, folks. Things are going to be very different from now on.